The 2024-2025 summer cropping season is upon us, and today we are going to be looking at the financing models, the strategies that have been put in place to ensure that as Zimbabwe we are food secure, we have food sovereignty, and everyone in Zimbabwe is employed and enjoying a chunk off of the agricultural fraternity. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. You are watching Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030, and today I'm going to be talking to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development right here in Zimbabwe. Come along to his offices for this interview. At this point in time, I've taken the liberty of inviting the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development right here in Zimbabwe. We want to look at the 2024-2025 summer cropping season here in Zimbabwe. Professor Jiri, thank you for making time to come onto our platform.
No, thank you and welcome.
Yes, as we get into our discussion, Professor, you would find that most of our Zimbabwean farmers are in activities to do with production and are cultivating their lands in this season that we are in. Maybe a brief outlook of this season. What is it comprised of? Your word of advice, what are we expecting in this 2024-2025 season in terms of the weather patterns, the rainfall patterns? What are we looking at?
So the Meteorological Service Department is forecasted basically a normal to above normal rainfall season. So of course they break this down into 3 months periods, but where we are now, we are in the normal to above normal rainfall season, November, December, January. So we are expecting a season that is generally good for cropping. It will end in March, so it's a shortish season, so that of course defines the crops that can be grown by our farmers, medium to shorter season crops, including of course traditional grains.
In terms of financing, what are some of those financing models or financing opportunities that are available to Zimbabwe commercial farmers and even the smallholder farmers or the subsistence farmers? They all need support to participate in agriculture. What sort of financing is there for these farmers?
The biggest funder, of course, is government, supporting 3.5 million households with inputs that are $100 each. And so that's a big funding that is coming through there. So we have government direct funding to the vulnerables. And then, of course, we do have our usual, the groupings that we have, the private contractors who are supporting in a big way, mainly supporting maize production and soybean production. We also have ADA, who are the agronomists of the country, supporting a whopping 100,000 hectares to mainly commercial farmers. And these are the farmers that we are earmarking that they will contribute the strategic grain reserve. We also have the banks who are coming through the National Enhanced Agriculture Productivity Scheme, NEAPS, the former command, where they come together and contract farmers using various structures. Yes.
Now, Professor Jiri, you would find that generally in Zimbabwe, there are crops that you refer to, that our government refer to as being strategic crops. In terms of these strategic crops, what are we looking at? And what ways or your sentiments or your words of encouragement to our Zimbabwean farmers, especially the commercial farmers, in terms of enhancing production and embracing those strategic crops for national sake?
So we are basically looking at 3 things as we focus on our production. We are looking at food security, and then we are looking at oilseed security, and then we are also looking at feed security for the livestock sector. So in terms of food security, we are looking at maize basically, but we are also looking at traditional grains. We can't divorce food security from nutritional security. Our traditional grains offer the best naturally biofortified foods which we must grow. our climate also now favors traditional grains. So the agroecological matching agenda and our new enhanced agroecological regions, they favor the production of traditional grains. So for food security, that's the focus. Sorghum, millets, rapoko, maize, those are the crops that we must grow. For oil security, we are looking at sunflower, which we must grow, and this is a crop which is low external input and giving you a yield. And we, in terms of what we need from sunflower is the oil, the cooking oil. Certainly, you would know that in Zimbabwe we are importing in excess of 300 million US dollars per year in crude oil, and this is what our farmers are really losing in terms of opportunity. If we can grow our sunflower, we should be able to save and indeed plow that 300 million into our farming economy. We also, under the oilseed security, we are looking at crops such as cotton, which we know that cotton is the white gold. We ordinarily can get also quite high yields of cooking oil from cotton. So those are the two crops that we are looking at in terms of oilseed security. In terms of feed security, we are looking at crops such as your soybean, where we are saying the majority of the soya cake must go to livestock production. Of course, we also have other byproducts from sunflower, the sunflower seed cake and the cotton seed cake, also feeding into the livestock feed. But basically, your soybean makes a big chunk of our feed basket. So those are the crops which are strategic for Zimbabwe. Of course, this is for summer, but going into winter, you are also looking at winter wheat, and you are looking at potato production, because the 15% of our population now doesn't favor the maize starch. They favor rice, potatoes, and other things. Hence the proliferation of all the fast food outlets, and of course the now new tax, because people are consuming these fast foods on account of our high production of potatoes.
Finally, as we close this segment, in a snippet, to those who might be looking, those farmers who are sitting on vast amount of lands, but they do not have the capacity even to grow tomatoes or even to grow soya beans, what is your word of advice, your views from a government perspective, and your interactions with farmers throughout the geographical location of Zimbabwe?
If somebody has a piece of land and they don't have capacity to farm it, or resources, they must find those with the resources to be able to produce. So we do have a platform in the ministry, the joint venture platform, where we make those that have resources and that want land, and those that have land but don't have resources. They come together, form a JV, and it's a win-win. You don't have to own a building in town in order to be conducting business in town.
Okay.
You don't have to own a piece of land in order to enjoy the process of the land. Neither do you have to have all the resources in order for you to enjoy the money.
Okay.
So these arrangements are what we encourage.
On that note, we are going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, farmers and aspiring farmers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. This is where we discuss everything agriculture, production, economics, business, finance, time, value of money, and even the nitty-gritties and strategies that are put in place to ensure that every farmer is successful and the agricultural value chain in Zimbabwe is sustainable. Viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore, on 0772 807 506. 086. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions. They are most welcome to us. Our YouTube channel is Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We are also now available on X, formerly known as Twitter, it's at Agribusiness 110. On LinkedIn, we have a thriving, vibrant community there, and our profile is Wadzanai Manyore. Now, earlier on from the break, Professor Jiri here was highlighting the importance of having joint ventures in case you might not have the capacity to undertake production. But at the same time, we have people and institutions who are capable of coming onto that piece of land and producing for the sake and the growth of Zimbabwe. Professor Jiri, we are now here in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Looking at the transition that we've just had, we were in the winter season, coming from harvesting wheat, getting into the summer cropping season, which is the main cropping season for Zimbabwe. Now, looking at that transition, what are your sentiments, your word of advice, your views, looking even at wheat marketing, because from production, we go on to marketing. How has it been like? How has been the business environment like looking at that transition?
So yes, we went into the winter production. Obviously, it was called the winter wheat food security strategy, mainly focus on robust production of wheat, so that we can use the grain to come out of the drought. So we produced 120,000 hectares, give or take. But in terms of the tonnage, we harvested over 563,000 metric tons. The farmers really responded well to the call to respond to the drought, through production of winter wheat. But during winter, we also had production of potatoes, production of maize, production of some traditional grains for those farmers that could. But the majority of the production was really in winter wheat. That assisted a lot in terms of delivering grain to the people of Zimbabwe. At the tail end of the summer of the winter season, we of course had grain distribution for social welfare, being wheat, and people really could use the wheat as they liked. Transitioning from winter to summer, certainly the marketing season for winter wheat was started well. So the payments for farmers have been going through in a good way, and most of the farmers that delivered really got some payment, and these are still ongoing. We have had about 230,000 metric tons marketed through the various channels, and of course some wheat is still out there with the farmers, and as usual farmers retain some, but we are anticipating that we will have at least 400 or so thousand metric tons marketed through the formal channels.
Professor Jiri, in Zimbabwe, I understand that the government of Zimbabwe has made strides when it comes to capacitating farmers through irrigation. Just looking at applauding the government of Zimbabwe under the new dispensation, looking at the irrigation schemes that we have irrigation schemes that have been put in place to capacitate the communal farmer. I want you to talk about this in a way that would applaud our government, because at times farmers or people who are looking on would say that there isn't much that has been done in line with irrigation. We cannot rely on rain-fed agriculture, and yet we have irrigation schemes. I would want you to touch on that as a way to enlighten our audience who is watching.
So the drought has taught us that we cannot rely on rain-fed agriculture. We must delink our production from the weather. That is what this drought has shown us. And of course, on the 5th of July, 2024, the President, His Excellency Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, headlined a conference, an irrigation investment conference, where the focus was on delinking our production from the weather. So irrigation schemes are certainly the way to go, but irrigation is the way to go. Irrigation schemes are just one part. They will deliver at peak 26,000 hectares across the 460 irrigation schemes dotted across the country. So that's one. Currently, we have at least 331 irrigation schemes that are operational. The rest now we need to rehabilitate, we need to maintain, we need to work them up, as it were. We, of course, you have heard about the village business units, where we are saying that there should be a 1 hectare irrigated plot in every village. That will deliver 35,000 hectares at peak in the 35,000 villages. The school business units, one at each of the 9,600 schools, that will deliver 9,600 hectares. The youth business units, one at each of the vocational training centers and 2 in each ward and so forth, that will deliver 4,800 hectares of irrigation. So when you bring together all that, it's a huge irrigation development that this president is spearheading through the Rural Development 8.0. But you also have these water bodies, Tugwi Mukosi, Ruti, Mshekeranwa, Gwaishangani, Osborne, all these dams which have water. And the thrust now is to ensure that we convert that water that is sitting there to irrigation. Tugumukosi will deliver 40,000 hectares. Mshekeranwa will deliver a further 5,000 hectares. Waishangani 10,000 hectares. All these need to be brought to irrigation. And this is why the president headlined that to give a clarion call to irrigation investors to say, come and utilize these water bodies. And so far the response has been good. We are looking forward to robust irrigation development in the coming year.
Thank you so much for such a detailed presentation on that. There, heard viewers, we're looking at irrigation development in line with enhancing production and productivity. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, farmers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. Now, if you look at SDG 1 and 2, it speaks of poverty alleviation and eradication of hunger. And the majority of the Zimbabwean populace make a living off of agricultural ventures. It speaks to women empowerment, youth empowerment, and even employment in general. Now, we are here in the third and final segment, where we are going to be looking at the various sectors in the agricultural industry. And at this point in time, Professor Jiri is going to be taking us through maybe Livestock, the Zimex exchange platform that they've established, amongst others. Prof. Jiri, we are here in the third and final segment. Welcome back.
Thank you, Wadanai.
Looking at the livestock industry, we have animal nutrition, access to markets, animal health. What is your plan that you've put in place to ensure that in terms of animal health, in terms of animal nutrition, access to markets, we are secure as farmers?
So as the ministry, we have segregated our livestock division into 3 main parts. So the first part is the research division, and then we have the production division, and then the livestock health division. All those work together to ensure that our 5.7 million strong head of cattle is sustained, and indeed we have livestock growth in that sector. We are always looking at strategies to ensure that we have adequate feed and appropriately priced feed for our livestock. This year we are really pushing in terms of breeds. If you look in the countryside, our cattle have gone smaller due to inbreeding and so forth. We do have strategies that we have instituted, including artificial insemination, to ensure that we start to have our breeds back. We are focusing certainly on our indigenous breeds, Mashona included, to ensure that we have the proper Mashona out there, which is hardy in terms of diseases, which is good in terms of feed conversion, which is also good in terms of meat and milk. So those are the breeds that we want, particularly in the countryside. In the commercial sector, we're also looking at appropriate breeds for our country. And so for meat and then also for milk. And that is what we are looking at. Looking at what we are doing as government, particularly during this drought-stricken year. We have focused on really ensuring that no livestock deaths occur under our watch. We have instituted the ward drought mitigation centers to ensure that in each ward there is a center where, apart from providing the water and the feed for livestock, those centers can also be used for organized marketing for livestock.
Looking at the ZMX, some might want to refer it as ZMX platform that was created for the benefit of farmers, for the benefit of producers and those that are looking to buy or purchase from our producers. How is the Zimbabwean farmer going to benefit? So,
we did a structured liberalization of our marketing of produce in 2023. What that entailed is that we instead of having this controlled marketing, we then said farmers must have options. Obviously, the farmers that we want to market back to government are those government-supported farmers. Everyone else must market to where they are contracted, including to themselves, because a farmer who self-finances becomes a contractor to themselves. And one of the key options for marketing is the ZMX platform, which gives not only a marketing option, but also a gauge and a barometer through which farmers can see what prices are there. So ZMX is a key platform for farmers to watch and ensure that they get the proper value of their produce, and obviously also get options for marketing through the ZMX platform. So very key, and in fact, it's the way to go in terms of a liberalized market.
Finally, as we close this episode, Professor Jiri, your set targets as the government, as the ministry, what are you expecting in terms of yields, in terms of tonnage, and even the hectareage to be cultivated? What are you expecting, and what are your plans or strategies you have put in place to ensure that you are going to get those yields?
So we have a target hectareage for maize and for every other crop. For maize, we're looking at 1.8 million hectares to be planted this season, and 272,000 hectares for cotton. So all crops do have that national target, which is also divided into provincial targets and ward targets and the like. We also have our yield targets. Certainly, to achieve that, we have put in 21 enablers which we are watching. For example, irrigation, insurance, these moisture enhancers. The end game of it all is to ensure that we get food security everywhere, every day.
It was a pleasure having us today, Professor Jiri. I understand that you have a very tough and stiff schedule, but you took your time to come onto our platform and speak to our audience, which comprises of farmers, students throughout Zimbabwe in terms of the 2024-2025 summer cropping season. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you, Azanai, and thank you, viewers.
There you heard it, viewers, from the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development right here in Zimbabwe's offices. We've come to the end of this week's edition where we're looking at the 2024-2025 summer cropping season. Why did we do that today? It is because this is the main cropping season of Zimbabwe. This is where we create our sadza and various crops that take part in the food security basket of our nation. From me, your host, Wadzanai Manyora, I'm also on Instagram. It's at Wadzi110, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.